So heading into Dynasty, I was given an incredible privilege. The spoiler card, Puncture, and Flesh and Blood's very first exposure to the then new keyword, Piercing. And in that same set, of course, came the Assassin class, and specifically relevant to today's chat, Shred, a card that can reduce defense value, figuratively shredding an opponent's temper pieces. See, Piercing and cards like Puncture are really good cards, but 3+ years later, the environment has, well, changed, and I can't help but wonder if Warrior shouldn't get a next life, so to speak, on the Piercing keyword, and I wonder if this will even be expanded upon in Mastery Pack Warrior. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando.
What is a dynasty? Those who grasp at power by any means. Those given control by opportunists and through oppression of the weak. In a single night, my future stolen, now an outcast. As generals vie for power, the dynasty devolves into chaos. My time approaches. My blades will puncture your armor. My blades will pierce your soul. What is a dynasty? Those whose blood coats my hands.
Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in here on your Flesh and Blood Monday. We're getting the week started, looking forward many months into the future, even past omens and into what I'm hoping will maybe become a thing in, well, Mastery Pack Warrior and all the things we have to come. There maybe the Olympia deck, probably not. Probably looking to Mastery Pack Warrior on this one. And what I want to talk about specifically is the keyword Piercing, as it applies, well, I suppose in general, but as it applies to Warriors. So what's very interesting about this card you see right here, Puncture, which as I mentioned in the intro was my spoiler card, which is pretty exciting. So it introduced the brand new keyword Piercing in Dynasty, which was shared between Warriors and, as I mentioned, Assassins. And what this does is it gives Piercing X. Piercing 1 is really all you generally need, but you know, there is more than that. But it says if it's defended by an equipment, it has +1 or +2 or +3 or whatever, +X, where that's what it says, but the trigger is if it's defended by equipment. Now, what makes this very interesting in terms of the general context of Warrior and Assassin, I suppose, is it gives the attack a bonus versus derating the equipment as I mentioned in the intro, something like a Shred where it actually decreases the value. And where this is relevant is obviously on temper equipment, because as you all know, if you defend with a temper equipment and it gets minused, it checks at end of turn what the value is and potentially be destroyed. So if you push forward a fresh temper 2 equipment and it gets a -1, it would only be defending for 1 for the turn, would get the -1 counter and would actually end up blowing itself up, right? Basically deleting 2 value off of that piece of equipment. And if you're Teklevossen or somebody like that, really ruining your day. So that was something that surprised me, I think, overall out of this. And to be clear, I think I understand why they ended up going this way, especially in that phase of the game. Remember, Dynasty was many, many, many moons ago in terms of the set. And, you know, just deleting opponent's equipment was something I think that they wanted reserved to specific cards and specific instances. However, it is a little hard to not think about Piercing thematically of like, conceptually, if I have a knife or a dagger or whatever it may be, a sword that is designed to specifically pierce through armor, it should actually damage said armor, right? Meaning it would actually make sense, in my opinion, that instead of you would get +1 on your Piercing 1, it would actually minus the equipment instead. And again, like I say, there's layers to peel back there in terms of how you design it and the implications, because let's actually go away from the Warrior example right now and go on over to, well, let's just go Spider's Bite, because it was released in the same set. Spider's Bite at Piercing 1, if you push forward a 2 temper on that, you can actually full block it because Spider's Bite would go up to 2, but you're already blocking with 2 on a full temper, well, on a temper 2, to be fair. Temper 2 would block it, but then it would go to 1 and full block, no permanent damage to the armor. I kind of contend that maybe you should damage the armor, right? Instead of getting +1, it would derate the armor. But I do kind of get it, because if you just throw all armor, this only still gets +1 because it's triggered on when it's defend, not for each piece of armor defending, right? So, for example, Spider's Bite would only ever go to 2, even if you throw 2 1s at it. That's a better example. You throw 2 1 battle worns at it. It would only go +1, right? So you would still block that, or 3 or 4, or whatever it may be, right? So that is where I'm starting to wonder, maybe there's something different. And the reason I'm starting to wonder if there's something different is because if you actually look at the history of, well, go back to Warrior, the only Warrior piercing stuff we've ever seen was out of Dynasty. We saw Puncture. We saw him visit the Imperial Forge, which, again, I don't think is ever. I mean, ever is a strong word, because like somebody somewhere probably did, but visit the Imperial Forge is not a playable card. Blue Precision Press was a go-to for a long time in, like, you know, the 2-ish years, 2.5 years ago range. It kind of phased itself out, but it's just because it was another go again that you had access to. And you weren't really playing it for the piercing as much as you were just the 1-drop go again as a blue. But hey, it was there, and it was a thing. But we haven't seen any more Warrior equipment. Now, we have seen new equipment come out with that. We saw in Outsiders, we actually saw Drill Shot come out with it, which makes a lot of sense in terms of that, even thematically. But the rest of it has been Assassin equipment, and most of that has actually been a continuation, really, of the Dynasty theme. Again, in Outsiders, and then you saw it on Graven Call as well. But other than that, we haven't seen more piercing overall. So it is interesting to me, because it doesn't seem overly powerful, right? It seems to be something they like to have on daggers. And to have it on daggers, I actually get it, right? It prevents, say, like a 1-drop like Valiant Dynamo or something from doing block on the dagger and just covering it up. And to be clear, not every single Assassin dagger has it. Let's be very clear about that. But I do like the thing where you're trying to, you know, most of those daggers cost 2 to swing. There's got to be some value out of that. You want to threaten the hit. You don't just want to cover it up with a Dynamo like you do a Kodachi or something to break the chain. Makes a lot of sense. It's really smart to me. But I don't see why we couldn't have a Warrior reaction that basically does what we're talking about here, except instead of getting plus, gives a minus. And I'm not saying, you know, give Warrior a shred, but you could have a plus, you know, you could have a Puncture that instead of becoming a 1/4, imparts a -1. Sure, maybe it's not a common, maybe it's a rare or something like that, because again, you know, that has impacts for implications in limited play. I acknowledge that. But I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'd love to hear your feedback. You know, again, it's very clear we haven't gotten more piercing, at least on the Warrior side. Do we think there's something in the chamber? Do you think they've given up on it entirely? I think it makes a lot of sense to punish, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a mechanic that punishes equipment blocks. You know, what that looks like in long-term testing. Maybe they are just scared of killing Tekla-Vossen at this point. I don't know. Again, Shred's out there, and that's a thing, and they have Shred effects on other things like T-Tox, right? So maybe they only want that to be in the Assassin class. I don't know. But again, it makes sense to me that if I'm coming in with a dagger that's specifically designed to poke through your armor, that your armor shouldn't magically heal itself at the end of that stab. Whatever. I didn't say that right, but you get my concept. So anyway, let me know what you all are thinking, and happy Monday, and go Commando.